What's up guys, Jivan back with another video. The other day when I was 1v1ing Cease, he had told me that he thinks that Fortnite is going to keep evolving and getting more complicated. He said the mechanical side of things, especially on NA East, have a ton of room to improve, and that got me thinking maybe I should try to get a little bit ahead of the game and start learning more advanced things that are beyond me. At least they're beyond me for now. So what I decided to do was check out one of the most mechanical players on NA East. I definitely need to do this for EU too, but I checked out Diego Plays. I watched about an hour of his 1v1s and I watched his montages and I picked up some new tricks. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you these mechanical tricks and how crazy they are. If you have somebody that you think is so beyond anybody else mechanically, drop it down in the comments and maybe I'll make a video about them next. But without further ado, let's hop into it. The first thing that I noticed about Diego Plays is that you know how when you're 90ing, you want to land as far up on the ramp as possible while doing the 90s because that'll get you to high ground faster. The fastest 90s, the most optimal ones, are the ones where you land at the top of the ramp as far up as possible. Something I noticed about Diego Plays is that all throughout his free builds, even when he's not 90ing, all through his retakes and everything, he's landing as far up on his ramps as possible and his movement is so tight. If you've ever watched Diego Plays, you know that he is just insanely fast, and this is part of the thing that makes him faster. He lands in the most optimal positions on his retakes, and also, when doing edits like this where you're like jumping through a certain build, he jumps before he's even completed editing. That way he just flies through the builds and doesn't waste any time. So he always does it with that triple edit out the side, but that's pretty tough to do, so I've been starting out with a little bit easier ones. So this is the first variant that I've been practicing. It's actually a pretty useful move on its own because if you're ever on a cone and you need to jump up a layer like that, that's the most optimal way to do it. So I've literally just been practicing that on repeat, and I still choke it a pretty good amount, but with enough practice, I'll get there to the point where I can do it every single time. After that, I move into this where I'm placing walls through a cone and jumping up through the cone and wall while I edit the wall. The main thing is getting that optimal movement. That's what makes Diego so fast. I've been practicing this movement stuff and trying to speed up my gameplay for a little while now, and I actually hit a pretty nice clip on Kenbeans with this trick. You can see in this, it's just so much more fluid and way faster to do that jump before actually completing the edit. So I'm gonna keep practicing these tricks until I can get that down. This is how you stay ahead of the meta. But I'm doing even more to get better at this jumping trick. The next step is moving it into the triple edit phase. I still have trouble jumping into that last wall edit, but I'm getting a little bit faster with it the more I practice it. If we compare what I'm doing right here, I'm jumping kind of like towards the end of that wall edit. If we compare that to Diego definitely has the upper advantage when doing this. You can see how early on he jumps here. It's just so clean. I do notice he chokes it a lot in his build fights, but he's pushing himself to get to the point where he can do that consistently, and that's what matters. The people that have pushed themselves and choke a lot are the people that are going to get ahead of the game. So I got to keep on working. The last step that I'm trying to work on with this is doing the triple edit, but into a 180. Like I turn around and I'm facing the other way. I'm trying to practice getting that optimal movement so that I turn around and I kind of jump up the ramp so I'm not landing at the bottom of the ramp. Back in the day, I used to do this so much slower, but I'm slowly increasing the speed. The next thing that I noticed Diego do that I don't is utilizing sprint in build fights like crazy. This is something that most pros are trying to do, and I want to start to get ahead of the game on it. So the main thing I'm trying to learn with the sprinting is how to do sprinting side jumps. There's 3 types that I'm working on. The first one is this, just literally an elevated side jump where I sprint and land on top of the ramp while doing the side jump. It's fairly easy to do the sprint into a side jump where you don't land on top of the ramp, but to land on top of the ramp, you have to sprint at a certain angle. And after a little bit of practice, I got it down with no problem. This is going to help high ground takes so much, even in endgame, mainly because it doesn't require that much build placing, so in laggy lobbies, this is very doable. But even in 1v1 build fights, it's such a quick move that you can catch your opponent off guard. And then the next side jump that I saw Diego do actually in his gameplay was this sprint side jump where you kind of claim the walls while you're jumping to the side. You can see him do it right here, and he claimed so many walls on the opponent, and he did it so fast because he was sprinting while doing it. So I'm trying to practice doing that kind of side angle side jump where you just claim a bunch of walls. And then on a similar note to that one, I'm trying to get the sprint high wall down, where I sprint out to the side, throw high walls up, and try to beat the opponent to those high walls by sprinting to it. Getting the sprint side jumps down is going to help me so much to beating my opponents to different builds, like whether it be walls or high walls, whatever it is. It'll help me get more piece control in fights. So I'm not gonna lie, I've had the same 1v1 start for a while and it's never really done anything special for me, so I'm gonna look at his start here and try to memorize it. It's really not that hard or complicated, but I think it's a good way to get on the offensive fast. He gets up to high ground fast with 390s and then jumps to the side and throws high walls up, and from there he can piece control. If we slow it down, it's literally 390s starting out with a sprint, but the last 90 he doesn't jump so that he can immediately jump after with that click side jump while throwing high walls up. I'm gonna test out this start for a while and see how it does for me. So there's one retake that Diego does all the time. First off, it starts out with that optimal triple edit jump that we were talking about at the start of the video. Immediately after doing that jump, he does a side jump where he protects all of his angles. He identifies where the enemy is, builds walls in that direction, and then lands. I noticed that he does this so many times and it's really protected. On top of that, it gets you up layers fast and you can do it on repeat. This is a good retake to have in your arsenal. I'm gonna be trying to get it down so that I can do it consistently. So for all of time, anytime I do a high wall side jump, when I'm going to edit on the opponent, I do a window edit and I piece around the opponent, but then I try to take a peek through that window. What I noticed that Diego does instead of taking a peek through the window is he gets the piece control through the window and immediately resets his edit and makes a more optimal edit for a peek. He turns his window edit into an upper right hand peek, which is the most optimal one in the game and the hardest to counter peek, and I'm going to be trying to switch that up in my own gameplay. I've just been practicing it in creative, getting the muscle memory for it down. That's how I learn any new move in the game, just on repeat in creative, do it over and over again until it's like muscle memory and I can do it in build fights all the time. This here is one of the craziest moves that Diego does. I've never thought to do this, I'm gonna be honest. So he'll be pressuring an opponent from the top in a build fight. And when the enemy is weak or trying to get away from you, he usually drops down when you're above him because that's how you create the most distance. If you go out the side, you might get Prebox, but if you drop down, you're just creating more distance and the opponent's not even close to you. So what Diego does is pretend like he's gonna pressure the top of the opponent, and then he drops down multiple layers and boxes below the opponent. This is something crazy that I've never even thought to do, but it makes perfect sense. You pressure from above, they're gonna drop down, so if you can beat them to that lower wall, free kill for you. They'll never see it coming. The last thing that I notice he does so much in his build fights is he like flips ramps but stays fluid with his movement. He flips the ramps to like block enemy angles or to make it so that he can side jump around certain walls, but he's flipping ramps all the time. And this is something that I can't do very consistently in a fight. So for the past few days, I've just been practicing flipping ramps throughout my free builds, just practice free building around, flipping ramps consistently in all different awkward angles that I usually wouldn't, and eventually I'm gonna get to the point where I can do this consistently and do it to put myself in the advantage in fights just like Diego does. That's all the stuff that I've been trying to learn from Diego. I feel like I learned a lot just from watching him for like an hour. Feel free to drop in the comments someone that you think is way ahead of the meta mechanically, does a lot of creative moves that you've never thought, and maybe I'll check them out and try to learn some of their stuff and make a video out of it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.